All right, welcome to the Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I am your host, Marcus Blake, and joined with me, as always, is the brewing sailor, Brendan Smith,
How's it going, nerds?
and Chad Womack from the Electric Jellyfish Podcast,
What's up, guys?
and Mr. Bad Jokes himself, Jimmy Alford. Bad dad jokes.
What's up?
Wow. Shots fired right off freaking.
Hey, you
Bad
know what?
dad jokes.
I can
You
take
got the
it.
sign right there.
I tell you what, if we're gonna go there, how do you make an octopus laugh? With 10 tickles.
Oh, here we go. And this is what you get from Mr. Alford's virtual teaching class.
Yes. Well, I like that sound effect.
Well,
That should be a
anyway,
ringtone.
if you could not tell by the video playing in the background on my screen, the music that we started with is not necessarily a Top Gun show, but it is remembering Val Kilmer, who passed away last week. So we're going to do a deep dive into our favorite Val Kilmer movies and remember a great actor that is gone too soon. And I do want to say this, I didn't quite realize, and it is very fitting that his last official acting credit was Top Gun Maverick. So I makes his funeral scene in the movie a lot more emotional, and I did watch Top Gun Maverick the other night. So anyway.
I had to pull out Tombstone.
Yeah, that's another one too. I mean, Tombstone, there's just a ton of movies that you can go back and watch with Val Kilmer. Willow, not the series. We can pretty much forget that shit. Yeah.
So Lucasfilm has too.
His movie made me excited for the series.
I know.
And then I was disappointed by the series.
I know.
So
I knew the series was going to be garbage when I saw the trailer and they had plastic fletched arrows in her quiver.
Yeah. By the way, our trailer version of that series is a lot better because we did it to the theme music of Beverly Hills 90210.
Nice.
And it fits.
It
so
very much
well.
fits. Yes,
it fits
does.
it fits better than it should, and that therein lies the problem.
There is one good thing about that series. Warwick Davis got a big paycheck.
Well,
I was gonna say
they
Disney
didn't
took it
make
off
it
Disney
anymore.
Plus.
Warwick Davis got a big paycheck, and he deserves a big paycheck. So, all right. But before we get into remembering Val Kilmer and also talking about some other films that he did that are not as popular, but show his acting prowess, we got to get to the news of the week, some movie reviews, and stuff like that. So before we get to movie reviews, I'm just literally going to start off with this week's Sign of the Apocalypse because I think we've got to complain about a glowing trend. We know that movies like to recycle old plots and whatnot, but sometimes they can at least masquerade it where I know I've seen this movie before, but at least, with the cast, it's entertaining enough and somewhat unique enough that it doesn't bother me too much. Pretty much every John Wayne Western. But the two movies that are really about this week's Sign of the Apocalypse that came out in the last month or so, Cleaner with Daisy Ridley, or as I like to call it, another Die Hard movie with Daisy Ridley. And that's exactly what it was. Not saying
The Cleaner is to Die Hard as the next Karate Kid is to the Karate Kid.
Yeah, but you can't really say that now because the next Karate Kid is actually part of the universe. So, yes, Daisy Ridley is the lone badass ex-soldier who is left to fend off terrorists taking over a high-rise, environmental terrorism and blah, 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 blah. And she has to save everybody and the one person she loves. So there you go, and while dealing with the cops and having them hopefully believe that she's not part of it. The only thing that doesn't make it too on the nose is it's not set at Christmas, so it's not technically a Christmas movie. But yes, Cleaner is basically Die Hard. Now, I will praise Daisy Ridley for having to be a true professional and doing press about, trying to do good press about this movie and at least saying that it's an homage to Die Hard. Sure, we'll go with that. Whatever you need to say.
Yeah, just throw the word
Rachel
homage in
Zegler,
there.
take notes.
Yeah. Oh,
You know.
wow, exactly.
Wasn't gonna say it.
That as a young lady who ignorance and arrogance are just a god awful combination when you're
Right.
trying to.
And by the way, you can't even fully get away with it. Like, Britney Spears and what's the girl from Mean Girls and The Parent Trap?
Lindsay Lohan.
Lindsay Lohan, who at least had the decency to have paparazzi shoot up her dress when they weren't wearing panties. At least we got those.
I think.
Well, like at least they also legit went crazy. Like they weren't just spoiled brats. Like Brittany and Lindsay Lohan had like severe childhood, and maybe Rachel Zegler does. I don't know, but you think that would have already come out? You think Disney would have used that to their advantage, trying like, look, she's a little woohoo because she had these things, like that would have already leaked out in the Hollywood trades. But instead, what leaked out in the Hollywood trades is we sent a producer up to New York to tell her to shut up and stop, threatening Gal Gadot's kids. Granted, not directly. She was just saying free Palestine, and then Godot had threats, and so Disney had to buy her kids. But it's just like, wow, like young lady.
Yeah.
You're actually, and the funny thing too is even YouTuber Critical Drinker, who is been just absolutely roasting Disney for the last 4 years and making quite a nice living off of it. He was like, the one bright spot of this movie was actually Rachel Zegler. She can kind of sort of act, and she has a beautiful singing voice.
Yeah.
Everything else was terrible. She was the one bright spot. If she had come out and shown like, what's the woman who is about to play Lois Lane?
Rachel Brosnan.
Okay. She came out and she was like, we have the utmost respect for the originals and for everybody who's played Superman and Lois Lane, but we really love the Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder version. This is an homage to them. We love them so much. We want everybody to remember them. That's PR 101, baby. Because that movie might suck, but I'm still going to see it because, hey, she said all the right things, and I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt.
I don't think it's going to suck. I think it'll be a fine Superman. It'll be better than Superman Returns.
I'm not saying it's going to suck. I'm just, lately Hollywood doesn't have the greatest track record, so there is a greater than zero chance that it will suck.
And they are, PR 101, and it is following the rule that I think Chad has always set forth, and you've always set forth. Respect the source material.
100%.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
well, and here's the thing: we didn't review Snow White because, well, we don't care, and
we don't need to,
and not even our staff, who would have normally gone to see the movie, wanted to go see it. So this is one of those times as an editor, I'm like, I am not going to punish you by making you watch a movie that you don't really want to. Sometimes you have to be a professional. Jimmy had to sit through the second Joker movie, but
I had to sit through Drop.
Look, we all knew how bad this was going to be. And if you didn't know, if you were holding out hope, you knew the morning it was going to release when Disney had their annual shareholder conference. And they didn't even mention it. It went straight to talking about Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah. So
look, I can tell you.
Sherlock.
Well, anyway, getting back on point about this week's Side of the Apocalypse. Yeah.
Sorry. No, I was going to say I have 3 daughters under the age of 10, and we never heard a peep about that movie. That should tell you something.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Says a lot.
And you could talk about doing movies that, regurgitated old plots, whatever. I at least appreciate the Huntsman movies for what they are. I'm not saying Kristen Stewart is a good actress, although she's gotten better post the Twilight bullshit movies. But at least that was an interesting take on the Snow White movies. Okay. Anyway.
I will say if you're going to talk about, movies that are at least interesting and still regurgitate the plots and stuff like that, the movie Freaky that had Vince Vaughn as the body swap teen against in the serial killer body,
Right.
I mean, and of course that is just the same. I mean, obviously
It's Freaky Friday.
It's
Yeah.
Freaky Friday, but with a serial
I
killer,
know.
and
Well, and
all that
again,
kind of stuff, which is great.
I
I
think
didn't.
you can kind of regurgitate certain plots or whatever. Shia LaBeouf did a modern day version of Rear Window. Something starts with a D, Disclose or whatever. Anyway, no, Disturbia. That's the name of the film. Not a terrible film. Not at all. David Morse played a great villain. Okay. And the plot made sense of a kid who was housebound, with an ankle bracelet and catches the guy. But it's Rear Window. The reason we complain is when you literally make it so fucking obvious. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to review G20 real quick that just hit Amazon today because we're professionals. I don't even think we did a press screening for this movie because it's one of those of who cares. This movie does one good thing, despite, having a decent cast. It made me want to watch Air Force One again. It is the best marketing tool we regurgitated the plot where the president is taken hostage, so to speak, and has to fight his or her way, against the bad guy. But we're going to do it not on a plane and at the G20 summit with a bad ripoff of a villain. And yeah,
they what they did is they merged Air Force One with London Has Fallen.
Yeah. And
or White House Down, isn't that what that sucker was called?
White House Down. We're gonna make the same movie, but with two different actors. But
that was White House Down and Olympus Has Fallen.
White House Down is better because it's got a black president. And I'm like, somebody actually said that once. I'm like,
Okay.
that has nothing to do with it. I like Jamie Foxx, but that movie completely sucked.
Look, the ultimate proof that you can redo a movie and still make an excellent movie is the 1960 Magnificent Seven, which is nothing but a ripoff of the Seven Samurai, Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai. But it does it in a new setting, and it does it with competent actors, some of the greatest actors of all time, not just competent. Yul Brynner, the man, Steve McQueen, the legend. So it gets great actors. It takes a great script from Japan. It adapts it to America. It adapts it to the Old West rather than to feudal Japan. And it gives it a slight new spin on it. It's well shot. It's well acted. It's well written. And you have an instant classic. So yes, it can absolutely be done.
But what happens when they do a remake of the regurgitated plot?
Yeah, that one sucked.
50 years later. Yeah.
Actually, I disagree. I don't hate it just because of the cast. I thought the cast was, a good cast for that story. But the Samurai story has been regurgitated so many times past the Magnificent Seven.
Sure.
I mean, honestly,
A Bug's Life, anyone?
I know. I know. Right. And we've talked about it for years on this show that if you were really going to do it right, that should have been the Obi-Wan movie. Okay? A Seven Samurai story. And
you and I have talked about that many times.
Yeah. And the sad part is somebody did actually make a Star Wars-esque movie, that's Seven Samurai, but didn't get to make an actual Star Wars movie, and it became Rebel Moon.
And it was terrible. And the second one was worse. It just got worse. So bad.
No, it was like an hour too long. My niece, I still have the poster like hanging in my living room or whatever. And she's like, well, what is that? I'm like, it's my homage to a kind of a terrible movie that was still kind of fun. And I'm having to explain that sometimes you can like terrible movies for what they are. And
I tell you what, if they even sniff this and there's blood in the water, I saw a fan-made poster of Hiroyuki Sanada as Jedi Master Sifo Dyas.
Yeah.
I was like, if that happens, I will die. I will die right then.
But my thing about G20 is, look, I get it. Viola Davis, great actress. You want to turn her into a badass and blah, blah, blah. And Anthony Starr plays a great villain we've all seen from The Boys. But I have a theory that they tricked him into doing this movie by telling him he was going to do scenes for The Boys and gave him some lines, and it turned out to be this movie because it's the same character. And the problem is the premise of kidnapping the president and him fighting back, you can only really get away with that once. And you're never going to top two great actors like Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman. You're just not. So,
in really their primes, like maybe not their prime physically, but their primes as actors, as men. You know, I mean, that was, they're so good. I mean, they're just both so good.
that movie they did, the second movie they did together, where they're two CEOs, like, you know, sending people to spy on each other, is a terrible movie, but you watched it because of two great actors.
All you got to tell me is there's Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman in it, separately or together, and I'm going to sit down.
Doesn't matter what the plot is. It's like, I watched that.
I sat through the last Indiana Jones movie, and that was just for Harrison Ford.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I get it. That's why I keep saying that the future of Indiana Jones is now in gaming. You craft a really good story, a decent game, and
a voice artist who isn't terrible, who can give you a rough approximation of Indy.
Right. Who, you know, and you can turn out some really great stories that you can play with Indy in his prime.
Just please work on the combat system. Thank you.
I know.
I love everything about that game except the combat and the going back and first third, but I'm getting us off topic. I apologize.
No. That's okay. In fact, they just did another huge update where they listened to fans and fixed some of that, some of the issues. So not the first person switching to third person.
Yeah, that's a core game mechanic. You'd have to rebuild the game from the ground up.
And that's fine. Is you can learn from it for the second time when you do the second game. And I think there is one on the horizon with the success of this game. But at least I appreciate them listening to the fans and trying to fix some of that stuff.
Well, Baldur's Gate 3 is about to drop Blade Singer and Hexblade for Warlock and Wizard. So I'm about to lose another 150 hours into that. So
okay, well, we know what Brendan is doing on the weekends.
Pretty much, yeah. This and Baldur's Gate 3 right here. That's what I'll tell you.
Prices are like a roller coaster.
For sure.
I already have the game. I'm staying in. I get it. Totally get it. But anyway, yeah, we wanted to poke fun at these movies that try to regurgitate the same plots from really great action movies that just don't really come off. And again, the bright spot of G20 is you got a great cast and they all got a good paycheck. So hooray. Sometimes you just do movies. Now, if you want to see Viola Davis really be a fucking badass and go to town on people, then watch The Woman King with an actual really good role for John Boyega. He didn't get shafted in that movie.
About his only role post Star Wars.
No.
Although I got a bone to pick with him lately, because all of us defended him throughout the entire sequel trilogy, and then he just came out the other day and shat all over the fans. So
okay, well, that's a whole different.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, but anyway, let's not regurgitate the same plots anymore. Come on, Hollywood. You're telling me you can't find. So there's not one screenwriter out there that can come up with something original, and you can't greenlight it.
Well, they can't. They can and they do, but you have to go looking for it because studios are so risk adverse. They don't want to take risks on new shit. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a reason we all love Boondock Saints as a cult classic because it was on like 300 screens when it got released. So, you know, so yes, they occasionally, like I said, earlier when we were talking, 1-2 things a year are going to slip through the system and be awesome. But Hollywood is so risk averse. I will even lower my standards of my request from Marcus's request. I am fine with you regurgitating plot lines because Lord knows we've been telling stories as a species for 15,000 years, and pretty much every story has kind of been told already for the most part. But can you just put a better dressing on them, okay? better scripts, better actors, better cinematography. Just entertain us. Okay,
Hey,
that's all we
I
want.
will
That's all we
say
ask for our
this.
15 bucks.
As much as we complain about J.J. Abrams, okay, and the fact that he basically remade E.T., Goonies, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind for Super 8, at least Super 8 was a fun movie. At least it looked good, had a great cast. You know,
No, I'm gonna have to go back. I'm gonna have to go back now. And Marcus, remember 10 years ago we wrote letters to Michael Bay? I might have to write a fucking apology letter at this point because that's how bad Hollywood's got. Because I really ripped him a new one 10 years ago. And you know what? God damn it. I could kill for a Michael Bay action movie this summer.
To your point about Hollywood being risk averse, I mean, personally, I think it's more, I mean, I agree with you. And I think it's as if Hollywood has put in a credit system like credit cards where someone has to have a good credit history to even get through the door.
100% they have.
Which is the reason why you can't, like what Marcus's request. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen. The screenwriters who have the new and original or good takes or whatever, they don't have anything behind them. They don't have the good credit.
Not to mention, a screenwriter can't just write a screenplay anymore and get it made because of the new Writers Guild deals. You have to have 4 to 6 writers in that writers room, which means everybody who's got a good idea has to submit it to 4 to 5 other people who are going to take their good idea and say, well, it would be better if you did this, but I think you should do this. I think you should do this. And now it's Frankenstein's monster.
Right. And now you just gave the best argument for why we need indie films, why they need to thrive, why you need
100%.
So
if movie theaters aren't making money or good money anymore with the big the big chains, then why not just have more indie movies being shown in the movie theaters? I mean, how could they lose more money than they already are?
I'm going to say this. If you think that indie films with a good small budget, great cast, there aren't really good films out there, then a friend of our outlet who just wrote and directed her first feature film, Bob Trevino Likes It, director Tracy Lehman, which I did my interview with her last week. That is an amazing movie. It's an emotional movie. It's one of the best roles that John Leguizamo has ever done. Okay, outside of some of the action quirky stuff that he has done. And the Rotten Tomato score from critics and audience, this is that match, the people that come away from it. And I gave her, and I kidded her around. I was like, when we were messaging each other when the movie was as I was saying, Bob Trevino Likes It is one of those great indie films that's doing, turning out to be a success and won all these audience awards at film festivals. I mean, it won the main audience award at South by Southwest back in 2024. So yeah, it's the power of indie film, and that's what we need. So I think we need to keep pushing for that beyond anything else. So. All right, going to move right along because we want to get to talk about Val Kilmer. But before we do that, a little bit of gaming news. So we're not going to spend the entire show talking about. We're only going to take a few minutes. The big reveal this week or this past week was the Nintendo Switch 2, which is finally coming out June 5th. And I think the big question is, Who's excited for this?
Well, you're in the US, probably not you. Just because who knows if we're actually going to get it.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, okay, to be fair, so Nintendo is basically holding up the pre-orders directly from them. They're still going to ship, as far as I'm aware, to all the major outlets and where the scalpers can swallow them up.
Right.
And oh my God.
Let me tell you something. The tariffs, though, the excuse of the tariffs is a godsend for Nintendo because they are getting absolutely eviscerated. It's going to cost $150 more than the Switch One, and they're going back to a non-OLED screen for the controller after the original Switch launched without an OLED screen, and then they did an upgrade where you had to basically buy a new system. It wasn't an upgrade; it was an OLED system. And so you had to go buy an OLED system halfway through the console generation. And now they're going back and charging $150 more without an OLED screen again. Bad look, Nintendo.
Oh,
Bad
don't
look.
forget, one of the biggest things that they've added that they've never had before is a new chat system with a special button that just has the letter C on it for chat. They've never had it before, but and hold on, they're going to give it to everyone for free for like a few months. However, you only get to use it if you have their subscription, because the only way you can play multiplayer over network is if you have a Nintendo subscription.
So after a few months, that C button is going to send you right to a paywall.
Exactly.
Oh, and by the way, their GUI for their chat, are you going to be paying Discord, Nintendo? Because I guarantee you they're going to be suing your ass off, because that is the Discord GUI. So
speaking of Discord, what everyone's going to do, no one's going to bother using the chat button anyway. They're just going to have Discord on their phone while they're playing.
Here's what's funny about this argument. This was something that Microsoft was worried about 20 years ago with the release of 360, when they first had the chat system. And they were worried about people upgrading. Everybody should go and watch that documentary. You can actually watch it on YouTube. The Power of X. It worked out that time because there wasn't a way to do it. You're the first one through the door, and it became so popular that yes, people were willing to spend extra. And also, people were willing to upgrade their internet preferences. At the time of gaming, when you didn't have anything, and it changed the landscape of gaming forever. Okay, guess what, Nintendo? You're so far behind the curve with your system. Okay, I mean, you're still talking about 2 generations worth of consoles that are better with the chat feature.
Can we all agree that Nintendo peaked with the GameCube?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the worst part of it. You ready for the worst part of it? All the backward compatibility, which the Switch has been fantastic with, the Switch 2 is going to be kind of shit. Yeah. Because it will only be compatible with some games. Some games it'll be able to run natively. Some games it'll have to basically emulate. And some games will not work whatsoever. Okay? Their own games. So they are basically backtracking on backward compatibility, which was one of the biggest draws for the last console. Right. Plus, you're paying $500 for it, maybe. Plus, $100 or $80 a game. 80.
90 if you're getting physical, and then the physical copies aren't always going to be physical. Sometimes you still have to download them, even though you bought the physical copy. So really, it's just DRM that you're buying. So why would you pay the extra amount for it? Everything they have, it's like Nintendo just spent the last week kicking themselves repeatedly in the dick.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Like if I had to bet, I would have bet on Microsoft or Sony doing this, but wow, Nintendo went all in and decided we will be this console generation's villain. And hey, you know what? I kind of sort of respect it. In a weird way, I'm not going to buy the system. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm in the middle of building a PC that I hope will last me 10 years. And I'm going to take all the $1,500 that I would have spent on the 3 console systems for the next generation. I'm going to use that for upgrades to keep it going.
You'll buy one graphics card.
Because no, that's not true either. You can buy very good graphics cards for far less than $1,500. But the thing is, with Microsoft's, with the next Xbox basically being a prepackaged PC, because it's not going to have just a Windows based OS, it is just going to be Windows. Okay, so, and you're going to have Steam accessibility on the next Xbox, and PlayStation is probably going to cave and go on Steam. Sony will go to Steam. All of their exclusives will go to Steam because Steam has 50 million players and Sony wants access to that market. So why would I do anything but just play on a PC? I've got all the games right there.
I think the biggest thing, so when we were talking about it this week, so Chad, I'm going to ask you, you seem to be the one that was more excited about this new Switch. Are you still excited about it, or
Yes.
You are?
I actually am. Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm glad somebody is. My argument has always been that, again, it's a very small sector of games, and I am not knocking Mario Kart, Smash Bros. I love those games and all that, and love doing tournaments and whatnot. And the Mario Kart open world game does look a lot of fun. Okay. But it's the same argument of, do you want to spend $500 to play just this one game? Or is it more nostalgia? And I'm of the frame, I'm like, I'm not. The games that I like to play just fine on the Switch. I don't feel like the graphics are going to be any improvement from the Switch 2 or whatever. The only good thing that I see out of it, and here's the thing, when we game on the Switch, yeah, we use Discord. We're all on speaker doing Discord. No big deal. Okay. We have That Nerd Show Discord. It's easy. Everybody can hear each other and we have a lot of fun. Why spend the money? Do that. If there is one good thing that it's going to do, it will make the price of the first Nintendo Switch, which will play Smash Bros. And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, all of those games go down. So if you're still on the fence about getting a Switch, or you're like my nephew who is saving his allowance because, he finally wants to get one and play Nintendo, I'm like, this is your opportunity, because you're going to be able to find them less than $150 now. So, I mean, I already find deals on Facebook Marketplace, pawn shops, and all that to where you can do that. And some of these cartridges, in the price of the cartridges will go down for playing the same game. And I have a Nintendo Wii U that I bought during the pandemic. I played Breath of the Wild on that. The graphics were still the same compared to the Switch. So, and to Brendan's point, you go with the better value of how you game. So I get the argument of going straight to PC gaming and all of that. There's no reason to run out and spend $500 on the Nintendo Switch.
I will say this.
Go ahead.
Quickly. Nintendo Switch is still going to sell. It's pissed a lot of people off. Yes, it's still going to sell. Why? Because there is a huge dedicated Nintendo fan base that will, like Chad, and Chad, not knocking you here. You like Nintendo games, you're going to buy it. You're their market. And where they've really shot themselves in the proverbial crotch is with the overlap market, the people who buy multiple systems.
Yeah.
And because, we haven't owned one since the Wii U, I think. We haven't owned a Nintendo, but Aaron really liked the Switch and was looking at the Switch 2, was looking forward to it. And we were thinking we were just going to do, like, I'm going to build a big PC. She's going to get a Steam box. And then, maybe we'd get a Switch 2. It's our kind of people. It's the people that overlap that aren't just pure Nintendo fanboys. Because, I mean, let's face it. There are going to be subsets of player groups that are just going to defend what they like, and they're going to keep buying what they like. For example, Todd Howard could lie to your face for the next 20 years and people are still going to buy whatever slot Bethesda throws out. and I get it. It's just the way it is. People love it. Okay, great. But yeah, so that's Nintendo is still going to sell a lot, and here's why. Because their games are still going to be good. Like, yeah, the price is stupid. Yeah, the fact that they don't have OLED is stupid. Yeah, the fact that they've got they're going to put their chat behind a paywall. Like, all of these things are objectively dumb, and they are going to hurt their bottom line, but not enough for them to care to make changes because their core fan base are still going to buy it because the games are still going to be what they want and the games are still going to be good.
But that core fan base is also still smaller compared to Xbox and PlayStation and all that. But and I'm not going to knock a company that is going to cater to what their audience is and give them what they want and know they can get away with charging this ridiculous crap. Okay, that's how you make money. But we look at the bigger picture here compared to all gaming systems.
See,
okay, I'll throw in another argument. Okay, I'm the only one that bought the PlayStation 5. It's, opening week. All right, so we can review it. Chad, you still don't have one because there's not a game that you're going to spend $400. You're not going to spend $400 on a system just to play one or two games. It's not.
Well, there's one or two that I wouldn't want.
For the PlayStation. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's
Spider-Man 2 and Ghost of Tsushima 2 come to mind. See,
and here I am going to disagree with you slightly there, Marcus. It is not a small contingency.
And that's fine. I disagree.
And here's why. Take a guess on how many Xbox Series XSs have sold. Just a ballpark.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, so go ahead and say the numbers.
Okay, so Xbox 32 million, 32 and a half. PS5 74 million. Nintendo Switch 149.7 million.
Okay. So the Nintendo Switch has outsold. You're talking about that console. Okay.
Yep.
Here's the other thing too. Which one of those, and that's fine. Numbers don't lie. But those are also, stuff that's more family based compared to all the other consoles. So I get that market. If you're talking about, my argument is gamers like us. Okay.
Right, and that's what I was talking about with that overlap market, because gamers like us are the overlap market.
Yeah.
And that's where they've hurt themselves. But I don't think they've hurt themselves enough to course correct. I could be wrong.
No,
and history,
maybe not.
The future might prove me wrong.
But I want to know, what are those numbers out of those 149 that have bought, that families who have bought the Switch for young kids, okay, that are it's an easy system to run. It's funny that
pure guess, I'd have to say half. That'd be pure guess.
Right.
Nothing to back that up.
Every time we do tournaments, I talk to parents. The last one I did a few months ago, they were thinking, it was a 9-year-old, and they were thinking about buying a console, another one other than the Switch, and they didn't know whether they should go PlayStation or Xbox. And I'm like, he's 9, do Xbox because of Game Pass. It has more games that he will like, and he can play Fortnite with his friends, and it's better hardware. He's not old enough to play most of the exclusives on PlayStation to why you get a PlayStation.
I think, though, the point of the Switch is different, though. I think what y'all are also missing is the fact that the reason why the Switch is going to be fine and Nintendo's going to be fine is because the Switch is the only console that you can play at home, you can attach to your TV, and then you can take it and play it in the car. And you can't do that with the Xbox. You can't do it with the PlayStation.
That's very true.
You can do it with a laptop.
Or Steam Deck.
You can, you can do it with a Steam Deck.
Their options are getting bigger, though. The PlayStation Portal is a thing, and the backbone is the thing.
But it is not the same.
And I get all of that too. So I just think you're catering to what you think is your dedicated audience, but the younger kids are still with parents, are not going to be online chatting until they get older. And I don't know. I'm not going to go into it anymore. I just, in my opinion, that's how. I don't think it's going to be as big. I think they will shoot themselves in the foot. I may be wrong. I just know for me personally, I'm not rushing out to buy it. Chad, it sounds like, will be the person that will Nintendo Switch do for that nerd show. And then, you know, and I'm interested. Here's one of those things. Okay. I'm not rushing out to buy it, but I want my friend Chad to sell me on the idea. Convince me that I'm wrong, that it's worth buying over the summer or close to the holidays, you know, as we do stuff. I just know for what I do with Ultimate Gaming events and stuff that I don't need the Nintendo Switch 2. And none of us really need it because we have Discord and you know, the Nintendo Switch 1 is just fine to play Smash Bros and shit like that.
I'm going to go to the refurb market like a year later.
Yeah. I'm going to go to Facebook Marketplace. Like I bought another PlayStation 5 here a couple weeks ago on Marketplace. A brother had to bail, a guy had to bail his brother out of jail. So he sold his PlayStation 5 and I got it kind of cheap. And I'm like, I'm going to look for that guy who has to sell it cheap. But you know, I mean, only time will tell, and we'll definitely be talking about the Nintendo Switch 2 as we get closer to the end of the year, and whether it will make a difference and you know in sales, and whether it's worth buying just to get open world Mario Kart. So now I'll change my tune if Nintendo wants to send me a free copy to review, if they can get across the sea and whatnot. But here we are. I just think it's not enough to get truly excited about. That's my argument. Now, with that said, Chad, would you disagree? Because again, you seem to be more excited about the console than the rest of us.
Well, they've kind of put themselves into a box that they're trying to find a way out of, and I can't believe some of the really brain dead decisions that they've made as far as the like we were talking about the physical copy that isn't a physical copy, and then um, I like the idea of them offering upgrades to existing games to bring them up to the technical level that the Switch 2 is going to be capable of. Me personally, I've never really been one for physical copies of games on the Switch.
Yeah.
And for starters, number two, the OLED thing don't mean a damn thing to me because I hardly ever play that thing on the go. I play it docked constantly.
Yeah.
I've never really sat there because of these, that it's just too much of an eye strain to try to play something like Breath of the Wild and read this tiny text on this tiny screen. It's a good size screen, but it's still not big enough to see
Right.
what they're conveying. So in that respect, yes, this system has always kind of been designed with younger kids in mind because they've got better eyesight because they haven't had a chance to screw it up yet. But me personally, I don't give a damn about OLED. I like the fact that it's going to be basically 4K native resolution, pretty much everything.
Sure.
I like the fact that they're finally bringing GameCube over to the classic library because they're going to expand to that whenever the system launches.
Right.
I have every intention of getting the bundle with Mario Kart packed in because it's cheaper that way. But I know that pre-orders were originally scheduled to start yesterday.
Yeah.
And we all know how that worked out. But they swear up and down that it's not going to affect their launch window. I will believe that when it happens.
Right. Yeah.
Because I know that, like, I know Best Buy, for example, was already telling people that yes, you can pre-purchase this thing when the opportunity presents itself, and you could either have us ship it to you or you can come here for a midnight launch party.
Yeah.
And to me, that's kind of neat because I haven't known of a system to do that in a long time. I don't think the first Switch had a midnight launch event across the
I don't remember. I mean, they didn't do that with PlayStation 5 and
well, didn't that launch during the pandemic though?
well, yeah, but
Switch itself or the PS5.
PS5.
no, it did. It did, but at the same time, most of the stores, yeah, they weren't doing the midnight launches, but you could go. I remember I bought the Xbox at the local GameStop that I went to, and I mean the line we got there early and hung out, and I live streamed from it. The PlayStation 5 was because of the shortage, it was very different. Nobody was doing it, and you basically had to find a place and hope that they had stuff in stock.
Yeah.
So
because that was November 2020, so that was right in the height of it.
And I think launching a system like that, I mean, I think it'd be cool if you had the same kind of aspect that you did when you were launching like the original Xbox, in Times Square and the 360 and all this stuff. We don't really do that anymore. And I would like to see those kinds of events, but anyway.
I will say, though, Nintendo for the last year has been building up the hype with a lot of scuttlebutt around the fact that, oh, we're going to, we're not going to make the same mistakes the PS5 did. We're going to make so many that the scalpers can buy as many as they want, and you will still be able to walk into a store and buy one.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that's been all over YouTube, all over Reddit. People who are genuinely excited but then the price came out, then the tariffs came out, and now everyone's just kind of like, meh.
I don't think sales will be what they are at the beginning of summer, but I think they will be better during, the holidays as we get there. So, like I said, we're going to see, and we'll definitely talk about it more. But for the meantime, we will definitely be on Discord.
Well, and also bear in mind, you're talking to a guy here that bit the bullet and bought a 3DO when it was new, when those things were running $700 back in the 90s. Yeah. I worked for Funko Land / GameStop when Mortal Kombat 2 came out for the Super Nintendo. It was $69.99. So it's not like this is a new trend.
No, but I mean, when you're working class people and you're dealing with an economy that, heading to a recession, tariffs, and all this other stuff, it's like, where do you put your money?
You just get more selective on what you buy and when you buy.
Right. My gaming money is being saved for some specific games on the PS5, compared to other stuff. That's how I get. But anyway, we got to move along. Like I said, there's plenty to talk about with Nintendo and the Switch and for another podcast, but we just wanted to kind of get into it. And, we'll see what happens. And we may have Chad tell us all about it if it actually hits its actual release date and, what happens to it in June. So,
and if I can find one.
Right. We'll see. And Chad, I do want to tell you, I mean, if there is a shortage, don't be above what I did to find out who had what in stock. I bribed a kid in the electronics department at a Target to find out that they had 5 ready to be put out the next morning. That's why I was first in line.
Well, you can help me be boots on the ground then.
Exactly. And it made it easy because I got to watch the latest episode of The Mandalorian while waiting in line, and there was a Whataburger, so I was eating my taquitos. Anyway, all right, we're going to move right along. And we're not necessarily going to do our top 5 Val Kilmer movies. We just wanted to touch some of the most popular ones and some of the ones that you may not have heard of, and talk about Val Kilmer to begin with. So, but I'm going to start with 2 things that are just kind of obvious about Val Kilmer. I always appreciated the fact that Val Kilmer, he was kind of choosy about roles. Even if the movie didn't work out, even if the movie kind of sucked, like the remake of the, Island of Dr. Moreau. Yeah. But, sometimes you do a movie just because you want to be in a movie with Marlon Brando, even if he doesn't want to be in the movie.
Yeah. That is the greatest explanation for that ever. I have never watched a movie where it was visibly obvious that the actor didn't want to be there any more than Brando in that film.
Right. I will encourage everybody that if you are watching this podcast, if you have not seen it, you do need to watch his documentary called Val on Prime right now. It is sad, emotional, but funny, and just, it was one of those things that got released kind of during the pandemic under the radar. And I remember getting the screener, cried the first time, I watched it again before it came out. But he very much had an interesting life, career, and how he got into, doing roles and stuff like that, and what his life was before he got cancer. So we're going to start with his very first movie, Top Secret, the one that catapulted him to stardom, so to speak, that he filmed in London. It is, if you're a Naked Gun fan type, if you like those ridiculous kind of satire movies, Top Secret is a must watch. It is goofy, ridiculous.
The underwater Old West fight scene might be one of my favorite stupid scenes of all time.
The footwork and the
Yeah. I mean, I know he complained about that he came from theater, he went to Juilliard, and he was doing fluff. But at the same time, it's still an iconic, fucking hilarious movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the next one I wanted to mention, because this is the one I think that really made us take notice, and it got him into the mainstream in Top Gun, but it was the one he did right before, Real Genius, which is
a moral imperative.
Yes, 40 years old now.
My favorite.
Yeah.
One of my absolute favorites of all time.
Yeah. I mean, it's the greatest prank of all time. They hijacked a military laser to turn their professor's house into a giant Jiffy Pop.
Yes.
Played by
William Atherton.
Yes.
The quintessential 80s dick.
Yes.
One of the greatest villains ever.
Yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
Yeah.
Just what I've heard.
I mean, in my opinion, is just such a fantastic movie because it was at the tail end of that entire nerd or college movie genre, and but it was still very different, than your Porky's or your
Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds.
I mean, it is kind of a ripoff of Revenge of the Nerds, but
sure,
it worked in so many ways. I think it's a subtle thing. But I think one of my funniest scenes is how, as a college student, he's so cheap but so smart that he uses dry eyes and makes it into a quarter to get coffee.
Here's what I love about Real Genius compared to those other films you mentioned. Those all have very adult themes, and this has mature themes because you're talking about the government and the military misusing child genius for their own nefarious purposes. That's a mature theme, but it's not an adult theme. Like Porky's, Revenge of the Nerds. There's a lot of adult humor. There's a lot of gratuitous sex in them, or gratuitous nudity in some of them. And this one, you can show Real Genius to a younger audience.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about, oh, my little cousin's over, I can't watch this film because he's 12. Well, no, you can. It's fine. It's Real Genius. It's not a big deal.
And you can have the masturbation jokes because he's 12 and he's going to get it. And
he's probably already gotten it.
Right.
But anyway, so we're just gonna slide past that.
Yeah. But I love the scene where they trick the other dude into thinking he's talking to God.
God
tells
him, really is God. Stop masturbating, Ken.
And the crazy thing is that actor, if he had taken off his glasses and worn just a different sweater, he would have become Superman. Because it's like if you squint, that dude is probably one of the best looking actors on that set, but they turned him into.
Wasn't he the yuppie? I forget the guy's name, but he played the yuppie that was trying to win Tom Hanks's girlfriend or fiance in Bachelor Party, wasn't he? He was willing to trade the Porsche to get the girl back.
I think you're right. It may be the same actor.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up right now to find out. Hold on. What was his name?
Oh my goodness.
I don't know.
Kent.
Well, the actor's name was Kent. Yeah.
Right. So, of course they put it in credits order. Damn it. Screw you, IMDb.
Robert Prescott. I found it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, he's Cole Whittier from Bachelor Party.
Yes. I think I remember that. But no, Real Genius is just it's one of those movies that even 40 years later, it still feels very relevant, you know, and I'm glad that it hasn't officially been canceled.
FYI, Robert Prescott played Sheriff Hanley in Red Dead Redemption 2.
And 1 and 2. Or he's Red Dead Online, sorry.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna jump into we're gonna do both of them real quick. Top Gun. I know he wasn't crazy about doing Top Gun and the fame and all that because he was a serious actor. He talks about that in his documentary, but it catapulted him to an A-list actor. And I mean, can we all agree that his portrayal of Iceman is one of his greatest performances?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Obviously it's, you know, a starring vehicle for Tom Cruise and you know, everybody became really famous after that movie. One of the things that I love about him is they just said, well, you're playing a fighter pilot named, Iceman. Well, what's his backstory? What motivates him? And he built the entire backstory of why he's such a perfectionist. You know, coming from an alcoholic family and never, you know, making his dad proud and all that. He did all of this. And I think you kind of start to see what drives Iceman to be the best at everything. And that's why when we get to Top Gun Maverick, he is the admiral, you know, head of the Pacific Fleet, you know, but also recognizes why the Navy still needs somebody like Maverick, you know, and keeps fighting for him. And as I mentioned earlier, Top Gun Maverick, his last official film credit, which I think is sweet.
What a swan song.
Yeah.
Which makes his funeral scene rather poignant.
I know. Tom Cruise was very adamant that that movie would not work without Val Kilmer, that they had to do a scene that Iceman had to be in it. Do you disagree with that?
No,
Honestly,
wholeheartedly agree.
Honestly, I don't think the first movie would have worked at all without Val Kilmer because Tom Cruise's character wouldn't have been Tom Cruise's character if he
Yeah.
didn't have his opposing antagonist.
Yeah,
Val Kilmer. I mean, like it would not Val Kilmer. Yes, Tom Cruise made the movie, but Val Kilmer also made the movie. And I mean, I think it would have been a grave injustice if he hadn't had some part in the movie.
How many times have we all watched that movie in nearly 40 years? God damn, that movie's going to be 40 years old next year. Jesus. Anyway.
I wore out a VHS tape of it in the 90s.
Yeah.
I had a jacket that said Top Gun on the back. It was absolutely that and Ghostbusters.
Well, we've watched that movie so much, like, I don't know of anybody that could have been as good of an antagonist, but guy that you respect and you want to fly with. I mean, the ending is the whole line, like, you can be my wingman. Bullshit, you can be mine. I mean, it's such a, you know, great scene on the carrier. But one of the things that here's my favorite thing about Top Gun Maverick. Yeah, it's all about him. It's about where he is in his career, getting called back and blah, blah, blah. The movie is filled with action. There's so much action with him being a test pilot, with him schooling the younger pilots and everything. That movie really doesn't slow down and become really, truly emotional until you get to that scene. And then Val Kilmer actually speaks. You know, and they have that moment, you know, who's the better pilot and everything.
Don't ruin it.
It's a good moment. Let's not ruin it.
Yeah, I know. That is the emotional center of the movie. And it's also...
It is the beating heart of that film.
Yeah. And it's also Iceman reassuring him and explaining why he is still around and why he keeps fighting for him and why he has to move past the guilt of Goose.
Honestly, it's my favorite scene. It's my favorite. It's the best part of the film for me.
So when we did the press screening, we actually did two. We got the first one like it was 2.5, 3 weeks before it came out. And I told our buddy Daniel from Daniel Direct from Real News, I was like, okay, I'm taking you this time around. I will take you because he wasn't on the list yet. I'm like, we're going to go see it. And we got through, you know, that scene. It was like, did you not shed a tear a little bit at that scene? He's like, yeah. And to Daniel's credit, he's like, no, we're going to go back and do it again. I'm getting a big group. We're going. And then we're cosplaying and everything. And again, people, when they walked out, were like, that was the scene that you got teary-eyed at. Because of knowing Val Kilmer's history, because it's his last scene and he's struggling to speak. And you pretty much know that he is, going to die in the movie. I mean, they kind of gave that away with the funeral scene in the trailer. So, anyway, great way to send him off and whatnot. All right, so we're going to talk about Willow. Now, despite us complaining about the series, can we all agree that Willow is still a pretty awesome movie, pretty fun movie from the 80s?
Oh, hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Never really been that big of a fan, to be honest with you.
I mean, I won't say
You've
it's
never
my
been a
favorite
Willow
movie.
fan?
I was a fan of his character. That's about it.
Okay.
I won't say
Yeah.
that like
Always
it's
has to
my
be one in the
favorite
room.
Yeah, but look, Willow is I will say fills a like core memory for me because it was on HBO. I swear every time the TV was on during that Christmas,
Yeah.
after it came out when I was visiting my grandparents, and I know I had to watch it like 6 times, and like the three-headed dragon scene, like the whole deal, or whatever.
Sisk.
Yeah, the whole deal. I mean, it literally, that entire part of my childhood, is really cemented in because of that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
that movie made me fall in love with Joanna Wally. I'm like, I understand why you're in love with her and think she's going and why you want to marry her. Absolutely. Um, so and see, that's the worst tragedy of the series is you don't even have him. And I remember when they were promoting the movie at the Disney convention before it came out, and Joanna Wally's like, he's very much in it. Like the heart of Mad Mardigan is in it. Like, it's not the same thing. It's like
Well, and not only that, but they just kind of like, oh, he kind of effed off. Basically, they said he's a deadbeat dad.
yeah.
And it was just like, that's how you send off Val
Not
Kilmer.
really a
Thank
hero.
God for Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Even if he is a wacko Scientologist, at least
And
he
it
knows how to
doesn't
handle
matter.
the
He still
people.
makes good movies, and I
Yeah,
can't wait when they finish them off.
as long as he knows how to treat the people who treated
Right.
him well. Crazy.
This might absolutely be his best acting performance as an actor. Not maybe our favorite one, but Jim Morrison.
Thank you.
Can you imagine anybody else playing Jim Morrison at this point in a movie?
I know at the time when they were kicking around the idea of who was going to play that part, the name that kept coming up over and over and over again was Michael Hutchence.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can see that, but I don't know if he's got the chops
Yeah.
as an actor to
Yeah.
pull off Jim Morrison. And then the moment you saw Val in that, that pose, that everyone knows, that black and white photo session, you're like,
Well, dude,
oh, holy shit. Oh, holy shit.
the band even said when they actually heard him singing, they couldn't tell the difference.
Couldn't tell. I was like, wow.
I don't know if it was hype because he just died, but I mean, I've read a couple of stories recently that he had to go to therapy just to get out of that character.
Yeah.
Like he was so into it.
No, I mean that doesn't surprise me. That's happened to a lot of characters who go full method. A lot of actors who go full method.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, Heath Ledger, and he never basically came out of it. I mean,
Right.
the Dark Knight basically killed him.
Yeah. I mean, but I mean, when you get into a role like that and you give everything, here's the funny thing. I mean, you can also make an argument if you watch his documentary that was kind of the beginning of the ending of his marriage because he got so in character for a year doing that role that I think Joanna Wally had to take acting roles to kind of get away from him for a while. And how he didn't win an Oscar for it, I don't know. So it's funny that we look at actors who played former musicians. I mean, Jamie Foxx won for playing Ray Charles, Rami Malek for
Queen, for
Freddie Mercury.
Yes,
Freddie
thank
Mercury.
you, Freddie Mercury. And you're like, well, it's great that you recognize these guys, but Val Kilmer, are you fucking insane how good he was? Okay. I mean, I love Taron Egerton playing Elton John and the fact that he actually learned piano and did that. And I mean, Timothy Chalamet made a really good Bob Dylan. But I don't think out of anybody playing a musician, there has been anybody that has been so dead on than Val Kilmer playing Jim Morrison. I
think the only one that probably came close was Rami Malek, because Rami Malek kind of gave the same vibes to the band, the living band members of, he sounds just like him.
Well, the fact that Rami Malek actually learned every dance move for the concert at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, if you watch those videos side by side, I mean, Rami Malek nailed it from the choreography standpoint.
The only one I can think of off the top of my head is Mr. Bozeman playing James Brown in Get On Up.
But that's another one too. I mean, he really was good in that.
He disappeared in the role.
Although my favorite, I love Chadwick Boseman, and as great as he's been and everything else, him playing Jackie Robinson's always going to be my favorite.
Yeah.
I also hate the Academy for not recognizing Harrison Ford as Branch Rickey, because he was fucking great in that movie.
Great in that.
Yeah.
If you want to take a little lighter note, you could always think about, I think, Dennis Quaid as Jerry Lewis and how much cocaine that he did in order to get into that role. I mean, just saying.
I mean, that's a good movie, but unfortunately, you still can't get the past. I can marry my 13-year-old cousin. It's okay.
We should mark that and use that in a promo for this show at some point. Marcus saying that.
AI probably already captured it. Now I'm going to be canceled next week.
Flagged.
All right. Here's the movie that we really got to talk about. Okay. Yeah, Tombstone. So I'm going to preface this with, is the Kevin Costner version of Wyatt Earp probably more historically accurate? Sure. Do we give a shit? Fuck no.
I mean, watching Richard Attenborough talk about narrate Blue Planet is really accurate too. That doesn't necessarily always make it entertaining. It's great to fall asleep to.
Yeah.
Like we're there to be entertained.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be historically accurate if it's entertaining. Now, it can help. It can be, if it's at least got a solid basis in reality, that's always nice. Well, but
that movie was so much fun, not only from the overall cast, but just how good Val Kilmer was as Doc Holliday.
Sure.
I mean, Dennis Quaid was okay, but Val Kilmer
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I was just watching a clip of him the other day, and he was talking about how he called up this voice actor, and he's like, I need a post-Civil War Southern aristocrat voice. And the audio he sent me was so ridiculously slow that I had to speed it up a little bit. It's just greatness. Just watching his face, because he was over exaggerating every syllable and every pronunciation. Right. So his cheeks were flaring, and it was just watching it was just greatness, watching him recreate what this voice acting coach came up with. And I will say honorable mention to Sam Elliott's mustache, because that's the greatest face ferret ever filmed.
I think Sam Elliott's mustache should just win a Lifetime Achievement Award at this point.
I'm like, seriously. I actually said that on Twitter, and there was there's an account that's Sam Elliott's mustache that liked it and followed me. And I was like, and to your point, Marcus, he goes, yeah, I just came back off a vacation. I was like, man, that must be the first one in like 40 years.
Sam Elliott's mustache is follow me. Say fucking what?
Yeah.
Ow.
But yeah, so anyway,
did you take a gummy and watch 1883 or something?
Yeah, it's like, but man, it's
Yeah.
The greatest. I to this day I still say to people when they ask how you're doing, I'll look at them and go, I am rolling.
I am rolling.
You know?
I am rolling.
And look, to be fair, he was. They had a lot of great actors in that movie, but he was honestly, he's the one that everyone remembers the movie for. He made the movie.
Well, hey, here's the thing. Michael Biehn doesn't get enough credit in that movie because he's
Michael Biehn never gets enough credit.
No,
in anything, whether it's Terminator, whether it's The Abyss. I mean, think about them.
I agree. But he gets so overshadowed by everybody else's performance that we don't take enough time to recognize like that fucking duel at the end of the movie. Say when. And I mean just both of them.
Yeah. All right, Lunger.
Greatest slow death scene in Falling on the Ground ever. Thank you, Michael. Yeah. That's how actors should do it.
I do agree with you. Michael Biehn is their first always overshadowed.
Look, so, it's Johnny Ringo.
Yeah. Well, all right. So that scene, by the way, inspired me to almost getting kicked out of the Navy, and probably actually is the first seed in the trail that gets me kicked out of the Navy. Because our captain at the time liked to sign all of her emails Carpe Diem. And I had a friend, really nice guy.
Oh, no.
Actually, really smart guy, but product of the Arkansas school system, so not very well educated. And he always called himself dumb. I'm like, no, dude, you're not dumb. You're just not well educated. There's a difference. And so he was like, what does that mean, Carpe Diem? I said, it's Latin. It means seize the day. And he goes, oh, she must be really educated. And I'm like, yeah, she read a fucking fortune cookie once. And so
just watched that Poet Society a number of times. Yeah.
So she comes out. She comes out with this policy that shift workers aren't allowed to party at the barracks because it's interrupting the day workers. It's pissing them off. And I was like, this is a bad idea for like a myriad of reasons. You're gonna have more fights. You're gonna have more DUIs. You're gonna have more alcoholic incidents out in town. I was like, why don't we have? I wrote a suggestion paper which you could do anonymously, and I wrote it. And I said, why don't we have us party off at this area on the south end of Ford Island, which is away from the barracks and away from the housing. And that way we can still party and crawl back to the barracks and everybody's safe. And then I signed it respectfully in vino veritas. And my chief called me into the office because they get put up on the command website, right? The intrasite. And he goes, that was an extremely well-written letter until you threw a shot across the captain's bow in Latin. And I was like, Chief, it's my understanding that those are written anonymously. I have no idea who wrote that letter. He goes, yeah, but you're the only one here that was an altar boy that participated in the Latin Rite Mass.
So use your head. That's that lump that's 2 feet.
I was like, she doesn't know that. And if you don't tell her, she never will.
I'm just waiting for the captain. Apparently, Seaman Smith is an educated man.
Now I really hate him.
No, I really hate him.
Of all the years I've known you, I have never heard that story before. That's
great, man. That's fucking great. You dipshit.
Man, okay, there's a funny story about
I put the petty and petty officer, baby.
So there's a funny story about Top Gun. And I actually I went to high school with a guy who, everybody fell in love with Top Gun and wanted to be pilots. He's the only one who did it, and he did go to Top Gun. I talked to him when he was there because he was talking about all the impersonators that are at Top Gun. It's hilarious. But there's a story about you get fined $5 if you quote that movie. And I asked him if that was true. And I had read that like 20 years ago or something. And he's like, oh yeah, that's true. And he's like, really? Yeah. And he told me, like my first day, I gave 20 because I knew I was going to quote a couple of lines. Like, really?
You got a guy in the back. Say Need for Speed. Say Need for Speed one more goddamn time. I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker.
That's when you just sneeze a $5 bill and go, Need for Speed.
Yeah. And he was always a smart ass. And at the time, he actually grew like he's a redhead, so he grew the Yosemite Sam handlebar mustache.
Look like Raleigh fingers.
I think his call sign, if I remember correctly, is Hot Lunch.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So for those watching that don't know this, when Navy aviators, when they get their call sign, it's usually not something cool. It's not Maverick or Viper. It's only Viper if you get bit by a Viper because you were a dumbass. Okay, it's given ironically. And a real life story about this is, if you'll remember, about 5-6 years ago, a couple of Navy pilots off of the coast of Washington got in trouble because they used their contrails to draw a sky penis. Okay, the reason why they drew a sky penis is their commanding officer was a guy named Commander Brendan Stickles. His call sign was Tess.
Shut
Testicles.
Shut up. God.
Well, that's a good homage. So,
Mm-hmm.
oh man. Well, anyway,
of course, they drew a sky penis. It was a moral imperative. Just bringing us back.
I think we can all agree that Tombstone is one of the most quotable movies ever.
Oh,
and here's what I'll ask this: there are certain movies that what we like to call remote drops. If it's on, we'll stop what we're doing. We'll drop the remote. That's what we're watching. I have two. Well, I've probably got more than that, but my two main ones: The Fifth Element, which is just a great movie to begin with, and Tombstone.
Yep, I both of those would be on my list. Include Hunt for Red October, any of the Lord of the Rings, or any of the original Star Wars movies.
Yeah, and I would go with the Hunt for Red October.
Josh Jenkins always a remote.
Okay, weird Val Kilmer movie that for me is in the list, and I don't know why it's in the list because it's not his best movie ever. But The Saint, I actually really always
that was
enjoyed
the next one I wanted to bring up.
It's a solid rainy day movie. It really is.
I personally think The Ghost in the Darkness is a much better movie. But The Saint is the one that I'll watch. It's not as like emotionally taxing.
Well, yeah, that's the key right there. Is The Ghost in the Darkness. It's very you remember the visceral reaction I had, Marcus, to Dunkirk.
Yeah,
like it just drained me. Okay, especially that hum throughout.
I know you didn't like the Hans Zimmer music, and it was grinding. I gotcha.
Right. And so Ghost in the Darkness, excellent film, just like Dunkirk, but very emotionally draining. Hit the nail on the head. The Saint is lighter fare. It's got great one-liners. It's got his signature charm. It has a lovely woman in it,
Elizabeth Shue.
Yes, who we all love. Anybody who lived alive in the 80s. So, but yeah, so no, 100%. Saint's great. No, I had to go ahead, Marcus.
Well, I was going to say, Ghost of the Darkness, from a dramatic standpoint, is the better movie. It's a disaster movie too. I mean, it's scary, it's intense. And I don't know, Chad or Brendan, when you guys did your basic at Great Lakes, if you actually got to go to the museums in Chicago, did you? I don't know.
No, I didn't get to go because I was I could have stayed for the weekend, or I could have jumped on a plane that night, and I had a choice between Florida or Chicago in the winter, and I chose Florida.
Fair enough. Good choice. However, those two lions are actually in the museum in Chicago.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, and it makes it more impressive when you've seen them live and then have watched that movie. But I don't disagree about The Rainy Day or whatever, The Saint. I am not saying it's his greatest movie, but it's a fun movie, and the different disguises and everything that he does and the story behind it, and being able to make and adapt a movie off of a great British TV show, I think they did an incredible job with that movie. And it's still just fun to go back and watch.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy,
also, we got to squeeze in heat real quick.
No, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I'm gonna squeeze in as well.
No. But Jimmy, what is your main reason for The Saint?
Oh, well, I mean, honestly, it's just one, I'm always a fan of spy thriller type movies, and it's also a heist movie. It really fits into that. It's not James Bond. It's not like super serious. It's like the movie Sneakers is also one of those movies where I will drop a remote and always watch. So it's like The Saint, Sneakers. There's a whole genre of movies like that it's always going to be in my top,
it's
like
it's
things to
action
watch.
adventure spy, not John le Carre spy.
Exactly.
And it's
it's right there in the middle of all that Venn diagram that just makes a movie that I want to watch.
it's also one of my favorite River Phoenix movies. I think it was like his second to the last movie before he OD'd.
Oh yeah, Sneakers. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't disagree with you at all.
Talk about another amazing cast too.
Yeah.
Sneakers is probably, if it's ever on, it's going to be on. That is.
But you know what's funny is
Sidney Poitier, I mean, is come on.
I agree. But you realize that you've got these two kind of nostalgic great hacker movies within a 3-year period, like Hackers that came out in 95, which that's now 30 years old and whatever. And you have Sneakers. I think Sneakers is a better movie all around, but Hackers is just a fucking fun movie. Hack the planet. All right, but with that said, it is the 30th anniversary of one of the greatest crime movies ever, Heat. And I watched that over the weekend. It was on Netflix. I'm like, fuck yeah. So, but here's the thing about Val Kilmer. He kind of does get overshadowed a little bit because of such an amazing cast. And it's the first time you get De Niro and Pacino on screen together.
For about 14 seconds in a diner.
But still the emotional heartbeat of that movie.
Yeah.
And I will say this, Val Kilmer got the weapon expert hype before Keanu Reeves ever did.
Yeah.
Because he trained, and literally that scene, the firefight scene where he is switching mags and he is, fighting for his life. That's actually still shown as like a textbook example. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
If you are basically having to flee or back up and having to,
it's textbook tactical retreat.
There you go. Much better. I don't have the terminology for it. Thank you.
Yep, no worries.
Yeah, but he had the hype before, Keanu Reeves ever had John Wick. In 1995, we had Heat.
Yeah.
We had Hank Azaria getting scolded by Al Pacino for having an affair with Ashley Judd, which, like, okay, I wouldn't probably want to piss off Val Kilmer in that movie, but for Ashley Judd, let's just say I understand.
Yeah. I always wanted to know what happened to his character because he's the one guy out of the crew that does get away. Did he ever reconnect with Ashley Judd's character, his wife, get to see his son? I mean, it's because you root for the villains, you get why they're doing what they're doing, type of thing. Anyway, he is amazing in that, even though he kind of gets overshadowed, and it's just an all-around amazing flick.
My favorite scene in the whole thing is not a word of dialogue is exchanged. Remember, he gets out of the car, looks up at her on the balcony, and she just goes,
"Yeah, I know."
Yeah, it's like a shotgun blast to your chest.
Yeah. Which, by the way, fun interesting fact. He did that movie, and the reason his haircut is at the end when they do that is he went off to go do Ghost in the Darkness and The Saint. That's so great movie. So there's a lot of iconic movies that we can talk about. I wanted to pull out. We're not going to talk about his Batman movie.
Oh, no. He is not the worst Batman.
It was the one after him.
The one after him was the worst Batman. And I would have to say, in my opinion, that movie had, Jim Carrey, had Tommy Lee Jones. That was a solid movie. Like 12-year-old Jimmy. I'm sorry.
If you took that cast, okay, and you still had what's his face? Tim Burton rather than Joel Schumacher, you probably get a solid film. You probably get a really good film. The problem is Joel Schumacher apparently thought everything was supposed to be a rave in Gotham.
Yeah.
My opinion on that is that I always thought he was a better Bruce Wayne than he was a Batman.
Okay, you know what? I don't disagree with that. He makes a great Bruce Wayne. Someone I was talking with the other day was talking about how they hated Ben Affleck as Batman, and I said, well, technically, he actually makes a decent older Bruce Wayne.
Mhm.
He actually
I don't have
does
any
it,
problem with Ben's
you know,
Batman. Or
Never
Bruce
have.
Wayne. I thought he was fine.
yeah.
I just thought he was, unfortunately the recipient of some less than stellar material.
Yeah.
But I think that line is like, "What's your superpower?" I'm rich.
Yeah.
Which is a
Look,
very,
I
very
I
Tony
may
Stark thing to say, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I make fun of Batman 3, not of the cast or anything of what it could be, and Chris, who,
O'Donnell.
thank you, did make a pretty good Robin. It is how it's the tone of the movie and how it changed from Tim Burton to Joel Schumacher that ruined the movie. It really is.
It threw everybody who had watched the first two for a massive curveball. We were like, "Why has a black light thrown up on the screen?"
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's terrible. We're gonna wind this down because we are kind of running out of time, and we get to towards after the 90s and stuff like that. He started getting into a lot lesser roles and stuff like that that are just not as recognizable as his most popular movies. But I think there are two movies later in his career in the early 2000s that really cement him as a great actor. Showed kind of his acting range that he was, not done and his career wasn't over, despite the fact that he popped up in various things. Now, one of those movies is not MacGruber, even though that is kind of a fun, stupid movie. It isn't. But the first one I will say is Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Thank you.
Yep.
You knew where I was going with this.
Okay, yes.
That movie, oh my God.
Some of his best dialogue in anything he ever did.
I agree.
I mean, when he
yeah.
and Downey are getting into it, when he tells him to look up idiot in the dictionary, you know what you'll find? And Downey's like, a picture of me? He goes, no, the definition of the word idiot, which you fucking are.
You think I'm stupid? Yes, I think you're stupid. But the fact that he played a character named Gay Perry.
Gay Perry.
I love in the hospital scene at the end of that movie after he's been shot that he's walking to go check out the orderly or the male nurse.
He was immaculate in that fucking film. I mean, and once again, we get Shane Black making an action film based around Christmas time because that's kind of what he does.
I know.
He did it with Iron Man 3. He did it with Long Kiss Goodnight. He did it with Lethal Weapon. It's just kind of his shtick.
Well,
and
you know what?
It works perfectly.
When I interviewed Thomas Jane a couple of years ago for his Texas Ranger movie, and he talked about why he did the Predators movies. Like, I wanted to work with Shane Black. And he put together a great cast. I mean, I hadn't worked with him, and we had so much fun doing that movie. But Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Robert Downey Jr. tells this story about why he did that movie. Because he was starting to come out and get into movies again, post being sober, and could kind of be choosy and all that. He said he basically wanted to do that movie because he wanted to work with Val Kilmer. That was it.
Solid reasoning in my book.
Yeah, and that movie worked on all levels. It's funny, it's mysterious, great cast. It's the one-liners are great. And the irony of Val Kilmer playing the straight man as a gay man. It's just not over the top. Yeah.
I'm looking at some of his quotes in that movie on IMDb whenever he asks Harry, did his father love him? Yeah, sometimes, like when I dressed up like a bottle, how about yours? He goes, well, he used to beat me in Morse code, so it's possible, but he never actually said the word.
No. He used to beat me in Morse code, so it's possible.
And he said shit like that, and he just deadpan. It's like he wasn't even playing it, almost like he wasn't playing it for laughs, even though we know he was.
Right.
But I bet you they had to shoot these scenes 100 times because they're like, I can't believe you just fucking.
I mean, honestly, it's his real genius character put into just a slightly different genre.
You're kind of you're kind of
you could make an argument that he gave up being a scientist, be Gay Perry or whatever, and it's just transitioning like 30 years later, or 20 years later into a new career. I like where they break the fourth wall too at the very end, and they try to sum everything up.
I love that movie to death. It is one of my favorite films that he ever got involved
Oh
in.
no, when I finally got my Plex server built, it was now, finding movies. That was one of the first I threw on there.
Same here.
Yeah, because like I've got to
And so
watch.
many people had never heard of it, and I'm like, boy, do I have something for you to see.
Right.
I'm like, Jesus, how did I not know about this movie?
So there's one movie I want to end this podcast with that I want to talk about because it's one of those. It's a rare movie. Most people don't realize that he did it, and it's one of his absolute best performance. For me personally, it is my favorite Val Kilmer movie outside of all the popular stuff. I mean, I like this movie even more than I like Top Guns and him as Doc Holliday because despite him being a genius in all of these roles, and it is the movie Spartan, which
Martin, I
came
knew
out
that's where you're going.
2004. It's a David Mamet movie, and he basically plays a special forces guy who has to help unravel the mystery of the president's daughter being kidnapped. And then, they kind of fake a death, and he has to be the hero that rescues her from sex trafficking and can't go home again and stuff like that. Here's how he got to do that movie. This is one of my favorite Hollywood stories. David Mamet was pitching this idea to a producer. They were having lunch like you do. And because he had met the real guy that it was based off of, I think Eric Neely is his name, who was, a former operator. And Val Kilmer was sitting at the table, overheard the conversation and just kind of, was asking questions. And then they all had lunch together. And Val Kilmer was instrumental in getting financing for that movie. He helped really get it made, and just, became the lead actor. Which again, that movie, if you look at the cast, that has a phenomenal cast. You've got Ed O'Neill, you've got William H. Macy, Derek Luke, Derek Luke, or Luke Derek, or
Derek Luke.
Derek Luke. It is also known for being Kristen Bell's very first movie. The only thing that she had done at that point was like a couple of commercials. I think they were just about to start Veronica Mars, and she had done voice work for the Assassin's Creed game. That was pretty much it. But
Great.
yeah, so the huge break for her. Fell underneath the radar, didn't really do well in theaters, and it became kind of a cult classic, like the Boondock Saints being on video, kind of like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang too. That didn't do well at the theaters, and that got popular from people renting it and discovering it at Blockbuster. I did one of my tours at Blockbuster when I was working there part-time. I recommended that movie to everybody, and the same with Spartan. So to me, that's kind of like his last great acting role before he, got sick, in a movie where everything, just kind of worked, up until, the very end. And it's a great spy thriller. It's taken before taken before you get these iconic lines. And, he doesn't get the hero's welcome or anything like that. He does the one right thing that he is supposed to do and can't ever go home because of what he did. So, so my question, this is why I absolutely love it. Has everybody seen it on this podcast?
Yep.
Yeah. Jimmy, have you seen it?
No. I'm sorry. I've never
No, that's
seen
okay.
it.
So I'm giving
It's on my list now.
Yeah.
I think
I
I was
wasn't
one of
going to
the few
ruin the
people.
mood.
I think I was one of the few people that actually saw it in the theaters, and I went back and saw it twice.
Did you really? I never saw it in the theater because I didn't know anything about it. I discovered it at Blockbuster.
Yeah, it came out. I want to say it came out right after I got out. Yeah, 2004. So right after I got out of the Navy, and I was a big Val Kilmer fan, obviously, and I thought at the time Derek Luke was a really big up and coming actor. I thought he was going to do amazing things, and his career. It's not like he's had a bad career. He didn't achieve that level of superstardom that I thought he was going to. And yeah, I mean, it had a really good cast between Ed O'Neill and William H. Macy, who I think are both phenomenal actors.
Clark Gregg was,
And so I went back and I watched it, and I thought there were some things I missed. I kind of got confused on it. And so I went back and watched it a second time because I don't think I was paying close enough attention the first time.
Yeah.
So
no, and there are little details. There are things that you don't notice. It took me a few times watching when they talk about her little signal, the cockeyed symbol, that after they've tried to kill him and he fools them with the scarecrow wearing his clothes, that shot through the window, the little cockeyed thing that she draws is right there in his face. And it's very quick if you don't really know, and you don't really notice it.
Right.
Kind of a brilliant thing too. Him trying to get out of there using the river so nobody can track him, getting rid of all the devices. I loved how they tried to get the one guy that's being transported in prison and did that whole coup and stuff. There's so much actual how operators work in that movie. It's technically sound, which I think is pretty amazing. So Chad, have you seen this movie? Or
I have not.
Okay. Well, I'm giving a recommendation to both of you. It's definitely one for Chad to download for the Plex server.
Already there. It's there. I've just never gotten around to watching it because we talked about it whenever we were talking about Val, when we were talking about the documentary.
Oh no, I bought it on Amazon, and the night he passed, I'm like, I'm absolutely watching that again before I go watch Tombstone and stuff. So, like I said, it's just one of my all-time favorite movies with him, where he just gives such a phenomenal performance still as an action star. And he's older and all that, and because I think Spartan and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang all came out within the same year of one another, and to me it's like a great double feature, because it wasn't too late. He did kind of B movies after that, and then he did his Mark Twain one-man show, and got that up and running, and that's an amazing performance as well.
I cannot find that. I've been looking everywhere for it.
Yeah, I don't. There may be some stuff on YouTube. I don't know.
I know they filmed it. I know they called it Cinema Twain instead of Citizen Twain, and I've been looking everywhere for it and I can't find it.
But like I said, these are just kind of the two most iconic. So Spartan is as we write articles about some of our favorite movies, that's the one I picked, because that's another channel dropper or remote dropper for me.
Yeah.
And which is hilarious, because to me it was like the best James Bond-esque Bourne Identity movie that came out at that time, after Pierce Brosnan had done his last film and after the Bourne Identity. And I think the Bourne Supremacy came out with all the shaky footage that bothered people. And I'm like, dude, this is the spy movie right here. So, and Kristen Bell also has told some great stories that Val Kilmer was like her older brother, really protected her, that they, because of the subject matter before, you have intimacy coordinators. So one more story I will tell about that movie. He gives all this direction about how sound travels. And it's a very rough scene when he does rescue her, that, he punches the character in the gut to make her shut up so they don't get caught. And she tells a story about how they kind of worked that out and did the choreography and rehearsed it, and just kind of an inspiration to her as a young actress starting out more than anything. So,
which at that time was probably a godsend, because there were certain guys, whose names rhymed with Barvey, who were in power in Hollywood.
Well, I've never heard one bad story about Val Kilmer. I mean, I've heard that he is, detailed and gets into character and, stuff like that. But I think those are just method actors. I mean, you can say the same for any, great method actor or whatever, but so anyway,
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal film that doesn't get talked about compared to everything else. And so I encourage people to go check it out. I think you can probably buy it for like $5 on Amazon if you really want. And anybody that I've recommended that movie to have always come back and said, yeah, it was really good.
Which funny story about Val Kilmer and Amazon, by the way. I'm sitting there the other night trying to find a place where I can watch Tombstone online. And I'm striking out everywhere. And then I go log into my Amazon account and I'm just like, you dummy, you drunk purchased this like a year ago. It's right there in my Amazon account.
So we're going to close this out and everything. We definitely want to hear about your favorite Val Kilmer movies or why you like certain movies. You can tweet us out at That Nerd Show. I don't even know if that's the proper terminology at this point, but I don't give a fuck.
It's $10 on Amazon, by the way, Spartan, if you want it.
Yeah, still worth it. Or download it for your Plex server.
There you go.
But either way, Val Kilmer gave us a plethora of great movies. Not some good ones or whatever as well, but just some very iconic roles. And he will surely be missed. So anyway.
Indeed.
But definitely tweet us out. Tell us your favorite movies and why. We would love to hear from you at That Nerd Show. And with that said, I'm going to go watch another Val Kilmer movie as we close this out. So
I think
everybody, it's time to say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Take care, guys.